What if I told you that you're not lazy? What if I told you that every moment you've labeled yourself as unmotivated, unproductive, inconsistent was a misunderstanding? That the war you've been fighting wasn't because something's broken in you, but because something powerful in you hasn't been activated? You see, I've studied men who changed the course of history, men who built empires from scratch, men who didn't begin with discipline, they built it. Men like Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Charles Schwab. They didn't rely on feelings. They didn't wait to be motivated. They didn't even start as the men we remember. They became them by changing one thing, not their talent, not their IQ, not their luck. They changed their identity, and that's what we're going to do right here, right now, for you. This is not just a motivational speech. This is a system reset. Because if you've ever felt like your ambition is too big for your current habits, if you've ever looked in the mirror and said, I know I was meant for more, but couldn't get yourself to move, then this message was designed for you. I am not here to entertain you. I am here to help you rewire your operating system so that laziness becomes foreign, and so that movement becomes automatic, so that discipline becomes your default. And the first step is belief. Belief that your current behavior is not permanent but programmable. Because the subconscious mind, the part of you that dictates 95% of your decisions, does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you repeat. It responds to what you believe, and it responds to the story you tell yourself daily. And until that story changes, your life will feel like a contradiction. Big dreams, small action, loud ambition, quiet execution. But today, we end the contradiction. Today, we begin alignment. And today, you stop calling yourself lazy and start speaking like a man who knows the truth. I was never lazy. I was misaligned. So stay with me from beginning to end. Not halfway, not in the background, fully, because you don't fix laziness with motivation. You replace it with ritual, with identity, with fire. And that's what we build right now. Let us begin. Let's be clear from the start. Laziness is not a character flaw. It is a pattern, a signal, a message from your mind and body that the current operating system is either misaligned, underpowered, or not emotionally connected to the mission at hand. And the dangerous part? Most men don't realize this. They don't question the pattern. They accept it. They believe the lie, I'm just lazy. But I'm here to tell you, laziness is not your nature. It's a misfiring of your internal program, a temporary detour. And if you can override it, if you can rewire the system that's been trained by years of hesitation, distraction, and unchallenged belief, you can become a force. A man who does not wait for the mood to move, but moves regardless of mood. Let's look at the most ambitious men I ever studied, Carnegie, Ford, Edison. None of them were born disciplined. Carnegie started as a bobbin boy in a cotton factory, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for $1.20 a week. He wasn't passionate about bobbins, but he was ambitious. And even when he was exhausted, poor, and unknown, he moved. Because he knew that movement creates opportunity, and that repetition creates identity. Henry Ford was a farmer's son. He was not born a builder. He was not born an industrialist, but he saw something, a vision, and attached himself to it. The movement of machinery, the future of travel. He connected his ambition to execution. He didn't wait to feel inspired. He built discipline like a machine. He once said, "If you think you can do a thing or think you can't, you're right." What was he saying? That belief creates movement, not the other way around. Laziness, then, is not the absence of effort. It is the absence of clear belief, clear alignment, a strong emotional why. And when your subconscious doesn't believe your goal matters enough, it shuts you down, not because it hates you, but because it doesn't trust you. That's why I say, you don't need to fight laziness. You need to remove the story that created it. The problem with most ambitious men who call themselves lazy is that they have a clear vision of who they want to be, but no system that leads them there. They dream of success, but live in reaction. They talk about freedom, but live on default. They admire discipline in others but have never installed it in themselves. And here's the deeper truth. No one will install it for you. No app, no book, no routine. Because discipline is not found in a tool. It is forged in decision, in repetition, in the rejection of the lazy story and the writing of a new one. The subconscious mind listens for certainty. It listens for command. If you say, "I'm just not consistent," it accepts. If you say, "I always quit after a week," it agrees. If you say, "I'm lazy, but I want to change," it hears the word lazy and programs accordingly. But what if you change the script? What if you said, "I am the kind of man who executes no matter how he feels"? What if you said, "I do the hard thing daily because my mission demands it"? What if you said, "I no longer ask for permission from my mood and I act because I said I would"? Your subconscious would respond in kind, because repetition with emotion is law. This is not wishful thinking. This is psychology. This is the science of autosuggestion, which I wrote about in Think and Grow Rich and witnessed in every great man I ever studied. Thomas Edison did not become the inventor of the light bulb by feeling motivated. He failed 10,000 times, but every failure was met with repetition, of belief, of action, of identity. He believed so deeply that he was the man who would bring light to the world that his subconscious refused to quit. His body followed what his mind had already decided. You must do the same, not with 10 steps, not with another self-help plan, with one decision: I will no longer call myself lazy. Say it out loud, right now. I am not lazy. I am untrained, and I train daily. I am not inconsistent. I am becoming the kind of man who follows through. I am not a quitter. I am a man who builds power through repetition. Say it again and again until the voice in your head changes its tone, because laziness is not a fixed identity. It is a reflection of your current programming, and programming can be rewritten. Let me give you a practical example. Charles Schwab, the steel magnate who rose under Andrew Carnegie, once said that the most powerful tool a man has is his ability to decide and act repeatedly without apology. He was not the smartest man in the room, but he moved, he acted, he repeated. While others hesitated, Schwab trained his system to take initiative before fear, delay, or fatigue could speak. And that habit made him indispensable. He didn't need to be the best. He needed to be the most willing to move. And so I ask you now, what if your laziness was not a weakness, but a signal? What if it was telling you, I need a new identity. I need a new emotional why. I need a new repetition system. Because the man who repeats power becomes power. You must rewrite what you say to yourself daily. You must stop labeling yourself as the old version and start acting like the upgraded one. And here's how you start. Every morning, speak your new identity aloud, even if it feels fake. Every time you hear the word lazy in your mind, interrupt it with fire. That's no longer who I am. And every night, reflect not on whether you felt like it, but on whether you acted anyway, because that is the measure of the builder. The man who does not ask his feelings for permission, but who acts because his identity demands it. That's how you rewire laziness. You kill the story, you feed the new one, and you repeat until discipline becomes automatic. Now let us go deeper and build the next layer of your execution identity. Every man who ever accomplished something extraordinary did not rely on feelings to guide him. He relied on structure. He relied on a system that didn't ask, "How do I feel?" but instead asked, "What must be done?" This is the core misunderstanding of ambition wrapped in laziness, the belief that great effort must first come from great motivation, that you need a surge of energy, a powerful wave of inspiration before you can begin. But let me be clear, discipline is not emotional. Discipline is ritual. And when ritual is installed, movement becomes inevitable. Let us return to the lives of the men I've studied and admired. Take Henry Ford. The man revolutionized the way the world moved. But how did he do it? not with emotion, with structure. The assembly line was not built because Ford had a good day. It was built because he refused to wait for one. He designed a system that moved regardless of mood. The machines didn't care how the workers felt. The system ran anyway, and Ford treated himself the same way. His mind was a machine, a structure of thought, repeated and enforced until success was no longer a question, but a byproduct. This is the mindset you must install. Do not say, I want to be more disciplined. Say, I will create a system that makes discipline automatic. Because waiting to feel ready is how men stay broke, stuck, and buried in excuses. Let me give you a story. Thomas Edison again? Do you think he felt like testing hundreds of filaments for the light bulb? Thousands of experiments, thousands of failures. He didn't do that because he was constantly motivated. He did it because he had a process, a laboratory assistance, a daily flow. He wrote everything down. He measured. He didn't rely on emotion. He relied on structure. That's how genius is built. Not in inspiration, in iteration. Let's break it down even further. Discipline equals energy plus clarity plus structure. Energy comes from your health. So stop pretending your sleep, food, or focus don't matter. Clarity comes from your purpose. So stop setting goals you don't emotionally believe in. And structure is the trigger system that makes movement automatic. You want to stop being lazy? Then stop waiting for clarity at 10 a.m. after you scroll for an hour. Wake up and trigger your system before the world gets loud. A simple system, 3 steps. Wake up. Don't check your phone. Speak your identity aloud. 1 sentence. I am a man who executes before emotion speaks. Do one hard thing immediately, not for outcome, for proof. Because every action you take is not just doing, it's reprogramming. Each time you move before you feel like it, you starve the old self. Each time you speak belief aloud, you bury the doubter. Each time you show up without applause, you install unshakable identity. That's how discipline is built, not in bursts of effort, but in patterns. Let's bring in another example, Charles M. Schwab. He was Andrew Carnegie's right-hand man, not because he was the smartest, but because he had presence. And presence is built on repetition. Schwab was known to walk the factory floor not once, but daily. He'd check details, praise effort, enforce standards, every single day. Why? Because his system was consistency. And consistency created power. That's what you must do now. Stop calling yourself lazy. Start calling yourself in training. Stop waiting to feel like it. Start executing because your mission demands it. Install this belief. My discipline is not a mood. It's my operating system. Say it again. Say it until it becomes automatic. Because the man who acts without asking his feelings for permission becomes a giant. Now let me give you the warning most men never hear. If you don't create a structure, your environment will create one for you. It will be the structure of drift, of default, of checking your phone 35 times before noon, of waiting until the deadline, of reacting to every distraction and calling it urgency. That is the system most men live in. And that is why most men stay average. But you are no longer average. You are rebuilding your pattern. You are installing execution. And here is the rule of installation. Do it daily. Do it first. Do it anyway. First, not before the world gets a vote. Anyway equals regardless of how you feel. Daily equals until the pattern owns you. Do this for 1 week, and your mind begins to shift. Do it for 1 month, and your identity begins to rebuild. Do it for 90 days, and the man who once called himself lazy no longer exists. He has been replaced by the builder, the man of structure, the man of decision. That is who you are becoming. And all it takes is 1 move without feeling. Now let's go even deeper into how to rewire your reward system and make execution feel better than delay. You are not lazy. You are well trained. You've trained your brain over years through repetition to feel good when you avoid the hard thing, when you delay, when you scroll, when you postpone your mission in favor of short-term pleasure. And what is repeated with emotion becomes installed. So let us now rewire what your brain calls reward. Because here's the truth. You don't need more willpower. You need better wiring. Most men reward themselves for avoiding discomfort. You hit snooze, your body relaxes. You skip the workout, your mind sighs in relief. You don't make the call, and fear temporarily disappears. That is a reward, and your subconscious registers it as success. But that success is false. It comes with a cost. You get comfort, but you lose conviction. You feel safe, but you lose power. You protect your emotions, but you sabotage your identity. And identity, my friend, is everything. The question is not, how do I become motivated? The question is, how do I change what I celebrate? Let me give you a story. Andrew Carnegie, the steel tycoon who mentored me, understood this principle before neuroscience ever proved it. When I asked him how he managed so many men, how he inspired loyalty and productivity at a scale few could imagine, he said this: "Mr. Hill, men don't move for money alone. They move because of who they believe they are becoming under your leadership." Carnegie made his men feel like builders, like contributors to something greater. He celebrated effort. He praised boldness. He installed the reward of identity, not just outcome. That's what you must do now for yourself. Stop celebrating comfort. Start rewarding courage. Stop celebrating ease. Start rewarding initiation. Every time you start before you're ready, that is the new dopamine. Every time you move without motivation, that is your new applause. But don't just wait to feel proud. Create a ritual to enforce the reward. After you complete the hard thing, so say it out loud, "That's who I am now." After you say no to delay, write it down, "Today I starved the old self." After you face the resistance, breathe deep and smile. "This is the fire that forges my future." You think this is small? That's because you don't yet realize how much your subconscious craves reinforcement. Every act must be followed by identity, because your brain builds from pattern. Let me give you another example. Thomas Edison. He failed publicly, repeatedly, relentlessly on the path to the light bulb. But after every failure, he didn't say, "I'm not good enough." He said, "I found another way that won't work." Do you see the difference? He reframed failure as forward motion. And because he rewired the meaning, he never burned out. He trained his mind to seek the process, not just the result. That's what we're doing now. You're not working harder. You're rewiring faster. You're linking pain to laziness and pleasure to movement. Let me show you a simple rewiring technique. Every time you do the thing you'd usually avoid, working out, making the call, opening the laptop to build instead of scroll, pause for 10 seconds after you finish. Put your hand on your chest. Say one sentence. "This is my new pattern." Why? Because your subconscious listens most closely after action. In that small space and right after execution, your identity is pliable. Speak power into it. And do this again and again until your nervous system associates action with identity. Let me take you now to Charles M. Schwab. When he became president of U.S. Steel at just 35 years old, managing thousands of men and billions of dollars, do you think he did it because he had more talent? He did it because he trained himself to crave leadership. He loved responsibility. He linked reward to initiative. It wasn't easy, but he made it emotional. When a situation was tough, he would lean in, and afterward he'd remind himself, "I was born to lead." That sentence reinforced every act of boldness, and every act of boldness built a new identity. Now it's your turn. No more, "I'm lazy." From this moment forward, your rituals say, "I do the hard thing. I move first. I choose progress over pleasure." Say it after the workout. Say it after the call. Say it when you open the notebook and do the work. You're not waiting for greatness. You're installing it. And remember this, every time you delay, you feed the old self. Every time you act, you feed the new one. So choose wisely. Now let us go deeper into the next transformation. How to kill the excuse loop forever and replace it with movement. Let us get honest. You already know what you need to do. You've known for weeks, months, some of you, years. The strategy is not the problem. The method is not the barrier. The plan has already been whispered into your intuition 100 times. But instead of movement, you go back to thinking, back to overanalyzing, and back to research, back to waiting for the right time. This is not intelligence. It is habitual delay disguised as logic. Let me say this plainly. If your default is to think instead of move, then you have trained your mind to obey fear, not purpose. The greatest enemy of greatness isn't laziness. It's the illusion of preparation. And the longer you prepare, the heavier doubt becomes. Do you want to know how Henry Ford built an empire that revolutionized transportation? He wasn't the most educated man. He wasn't the most gifted speaker. But he had a bias for movement. When his engineers told him the V8 engine block was impossible to build in a single casting, he didn't argue. He said, "Build it anyway." And when they returned again, saying it could not be done, he didn't form a new committee. He didn't run a study. He didn't write a white paper. He simply repeated, "Build it anyway." Because Ford understood something the modern man has forgotten. Excuses multiply in stillness, but excuses cannot survive motion. The moment you move, and even with uncertainty, you kill the excuse loop. Because the mind, when idle, plays tricks. It magnifies fear. It inflates the cost of failure. It makes perfection sound noble, when in reality it's just a sophisticated delay. Let me take you to another giant, Abraham Lincoln. During the Civil War, the pressure upon Lincoln was unimaginable. Each decision meant lives. The nation was divided. Advisors were conflicted. Public opinion wavered daily. And still, Lincoln moved. He signed the Emancipation Proclamation not because the conditions were perfect, but because the mission demanded motion. He once said, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." And creation is never birthed from thinking alone. It's born through doing. The man who becomes unstoppable is not the one who knows the most. He is the one who moves with what he knows and expands while in motion. Here's what you must now burn into your behavior. Do not ask, "Is this perfect?" Ask, "Is this aligned?" If it is aligned, you move, you adjust later, you fix in flight, because the man who waits for the ideal condition will die in theory. Let me offer you a discipline that has saved me and every ambitious man I've trained. The 2-minute rule of motion. If a thought enters your mind, something you know needs to be done, you have 2 minutes to take the first step, not to plan it, not to write about it, to do it. And if it's a message, send it. If it's a call, make it. If it's a rep, start it. If it's an idea, record it. The only rule, move within 2 minutes of the thought arriving. Why? Because hesitation is how the excuse loop is born. Action is how it's broken. Now, you may say, "But what if I fail?" Let me give you the truth. You will. At times, you will make imperfect moves. You will trip. You will miscalculate. But the man who fails in motion is always closer to power than the man who fears in silence. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times on his way to the light bulb, but he didn't delay. He documented. He adjusted. He moved again. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That is the mindset of a builder, not a thinker. But you must decide. What man do you want to become? The one who imagines power, or the one who moves in power even before he's ready? Let me speak this into your soul now. You do not need more time. You need fewer excuses. You do not need more confidence. You need motion. And motion, repeated, becomes identity. So here is your ritual. Every morning, write down the 3 actions that matter most today. Not the easy ones, the ones you keep postponing, the ones that scare you. Then commit not to finish them all perfectly, but to start each within 2 minutes of when you planned. You repeat this day after day, and something happens. The mind stops negotiating, and it starts following. You become the man who does, not who thinks about doing. This is your new language. I act quickly. I trust motion more than mood. I break excuses with movement. And the more you repeat it, the less room doubt has to speak. Remember this law. Hesitation trains the mind to disobey. Action trains the mind to submit. Say it again. I act. I move. I kill the excuse. There comes a moment in every man's life when he must stop negotiating with who he used to be. Not gently, not politely, but with fire. Because if you always leave a path back to your old self, to your old excuses, your old rhythms, your old comfort, then transformation will always remain optional, and anything optional will eventually be abandoned. The men I studied, the titans who rewrote the rules of their lives and industries, they didn't merely step into the future. They cut ties with the past, not because the past was evil, but because it was no longer useful. And in doing so, they made change inevitable. Let me tell you about Hernán Cortés, the Spanish explorer, a man whose action illustrates this law. When Cortés landed in Mexico with his small army, he knew they were vastly outnumbered by the Aztec Empire, but he also knew the psychology of hesitation. So what did he do? He ordered the ships burned. He removed the option of retreat. There was no going back, only forward, only conquest, only victory or death. That is the mindset you must adopt. Because if you leave the door cracked open to the man you used to be, he will always whisper you back. You'll return to your snooze button. You'll crawl back to comfort. You'll make just this once excuses until they become identity again. But when you burn the bridge, when you declare with action, I'm never going back to that version of me, then your only path is forward. This is what Andrew Carnegie understood. Before he became one of the wealthiest men in America, he worked as a messenger boy earning a few dollars a week. But even then, even in poverty, he began to invest his time in reading, studying, and planning for the future. He refused to accept the idea that the class he was born into would be the class he died in. He began to write his chief aim. He didn't just write it once, he repeated it every morning, every evening, until his subconscious could no longer tolerate mediocrity. He began to outgrow poverty, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, long before his bank account followed. And when opportunities came, he didn't hesitate. He moved. He invested his time in building partnerships, in creating value, in aligning himself with people of power. But most importantly, he stopped spending time with those who kept him tied to the past. That is burning the bridge. You must now ask yourself, what in your life still connects you to the man you're trying to leave behind? Is it the conversations you keep having with people who don't believe in growth? Is it the habits you entertain, scrolling, sleeping in, starting and stopping? Is it the identity you still cling to? I'm just not that motivated. I've always struggled with discipline. I'm too inconsistent. If so, I'll burn it, not in anger, but in decision. Declare to yourself, that part of me no longer has a vote. Henry Ford once said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That isn't just a clever phrase, it's a law. And the only way to escape that law is to remove the option to do what you've always done. Here's how. I call it the bridge-burning ritual. Write down 3 things you will no longer allow into your life. Not ideas, behaviors. For example, I no longer hit the snooze button. I no longer eat after 9 p.m. I no longer explain my dreams to people who laugh. Write them down in bold ink. Speak them aloud every morning. Then, destroy the reminders of the old self. Delete the apps that keep you looping. Cancel the subscriptions that distract your purpose. Block the websites that seduce your time. Stop answering messages from people who live in the past you've outgrown. This isn't about hate, it's about clarity. This is how Thomas Edison moved. He didn't sit around hoping for inspiration to strike. He built routines so powerful that his environment forced genius. His labs were filled with tools, notes, failures, and systems. Not distractions. He had no use for the familiar comforts that sedated other men. He designed a world around, forward only, and it worked. Now you must do the same, and you must ask, what in my life makes the past easy to return to? And then remove it today. Not later, because every day you tolerate it is a vote for the man you no longer want to be. Say this aloud now. I burn the bridge to my old life. I move forward only. My identity is sealed by decision. Repeat that, then act on it. Let this be your fire. Because once you remove the option to retreat, the only direction left is greatness. Now let us continue. A man who depends on motivation is a man who gambles with his future, because motivation is a mood. It comes and goes. It responds to the weather, to how well you slept, to what someone said to you online. But the man who builds his life on rituals, he doesn't wait for the right feeling. He creates the right environment. You see, greatness is not spontaneous. It is not the result of occasional intensity. It is the byproduct of repeated precision, a system, a rhythm, a machine that operates even when the soul is tired, even when the mind protests, even when no one is watching. That machine is ritual. I taught this in every chapter of Think and Grow Rich and the Law of Success. All powerful men had something in common, daily disciplines that did not depend on emotion. My personal ritual includes daily autosuggestion, writing out my definite major purpose, and spending intentional time in reflection and visualization. These weren't grand gestures, they were non-negotiables. Take Thomas Edison, for example. Edison did not wait to feel inspired to experiment. He showed up, he repeated his process. He didn't view failure as a dead end, he viewed it as part of the equation. His ritual was relentless repetition. Each failed attempt was simply another layer of learning. And because he stuck to the rhythm, he built 1,000 inventions, not with genius, but with consistency. Ask yourself now, do you have a system? Or do you wake each day hoping for inspiration to find you? If your days are built on randomness, your results will be too. But if your days are built on ritual, your identity will begin to transform automatically. Let's talk Henry Ford. Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry by dreaming bigger. He did it by designing a repeatable system, the assembly line. He saw that if he could break down the process into small, automatic steps, steps that could be repeated daily, with minimal variation, he could scale excellence. Apply this to yourself. Your habits are your personal assembly line. Every morning ritual, every evening routine, every hour of structure. It is not about perfection. It's about creating an environment where progress is inevitable. But here's the key. Your rituals must be built to reflect your identity, not just your goals. You want to become disciplined? Then act like a disciplined man, not occasionally, but every single day. You want to become focused? Then eliminate decisions that drain your energy. Wear the same clothes, eat the same meals. Plan your day the night before. Automate what doesn't matter so you can concentrate on what does. Charles M. Schwab, the steel magnate and protege of Andrew Carnegie, carried a small notebook with him at all times. In it, he wrote down the 6 most important tasks for the next day, ranked in order of priority. He learned this from his productivity advisor, Ivy Lee, who promised that if Schwab followed this system, his entire company would become more productive. And it worked. Why? Because Schwab stopped relying on motivation. He outsourced his memory to ritual. The notebook made his decision-making automatic. No mental chaos, no debate, just action. And you can do the same. And let's build your machine now. Here's the framework. 1. Morning ritual. Command the day before it commands you. Wake up and speak your definite purpose aloud. Read or listen to 5 to 10 minutes of something that reinforces your identity. Move your body. Doesn't have to be intense, just enough to create momentum. Visualize your most important win of the day and emotionally commit to finishing it. 2. Focus blocks. Create sacred time. Set a 90-minute timer, no distractions, one task only. Take a short break, breathe. Hydrate, reset, repeat this rhythm up to 3 times a day. That's 4.5 hours of high-quality, undistracted effort, more than most produce in a week. 3rd evening ritual, seal the identity. Reflect on what you accomplished. Write down what you'll do tomorrow. Speak your affirmations, the same ones we've been installing. Play a section of this speech before bed. Allow the subconscious to be rewired during sleep. You may say, "That sounds boring." Good. That's exactly why it works. Power is not born from novelty. It is born from certainty. Your subconscious doesn't crave stimulation. It craves stability. And when it knows with absolute consistency what your day looks like, it stops sabotaging you. It starts trusting you. Remember, your identity is not built by one-time events. It's built by what you rehearse. Every morning you rise early, you're rehearsing power. Every time you complete the focus block, you're rehearsing discipline. Every time you speak belief before bed, you're rehearsing faith. And eventually, this repetition becomes so deeply embedded that you stop trying and you start being. That's the shift. That's the moment the machine takes over. This is not about becoming robotic. It's about becoming reliable to your future. Let's return once more to Andrew Carnegie. He once said, "You cannot push anyone up a ladder unless he is willing to climb a little himself." And what he meant was this: no one else will do your work for you. But once you build a structure, once you design your ladder and start climbing it daily, your rise becomes inevitable. So now I ask you, where is your machine? What rituals are shaping your days? What non-negotiables are building your identity? You don't need to do more. You need to do the right things every day until your results are no longer a question. Say it aloud. I build machines that produce power. My rituals reflect who I am becoming. My success is not a surprise, and it is a system. Now let's continue into the next layer of rewiring. The greatest tragedy of modern man is not that he lacks ambition. It is that he allows too many voices to occupy his mind. He has traded depth for noise. He reaches for movement instead of meaning. His attention is divided, and therefore his results are diluted. Let me speak plainly. The man who succeeds is not the man who tries everything. It is the man who chooses one thing and does not flinch. The man who cannot be interrupted. The man who cannot be reached by every passing idea or passing fool. The man who, when asked to divide his focus, replies, "I am occupied with destiny." Andrew Carnegie once told me, "Concentration is my motto. First honesty, then industry, then concentration." That was no empty statement. Carnegie ran an empire not because he chased every opportunity, but because he knew how to shut the door on anything that did not serve his aim. When men came with distractions, he listened politely, and then returned to the furnace of his purpose. Now I ask you, do you allow every ringing bell, every trivial request, every flicker of impulse to steal your mind? If so, your future is being drained, not by failure, but by distraction. Henry Ford built a revolution not by dabbling, but by simplifying. He refused to waste thought on the unnecessary. He did not build 10 cars. He built one car well and delivered it to the masses. People asked why he only made one model. His reply? "You can have it in any color, as long as it's black." Why? Because he was not seeking applause. He was seeking efficiency. Ford understood what few men ever learn, that focus is not limitation, it is liberation. He eliminated excess choices so that his attention could be directed toward what mattered most: mastery. That, my friend, is a lesson you must take to heart. Your energy is your most valuable currency, and every time you allow your thoughts to wander, to respond, to react, you are spending power that should have been invested in your mission. Think of Thomas Edison, working in his laboratory, sometimes sleeping on a bench because he did not wish to waste even an hour away from his work. He did not answer every call. He did not entertain every idea. He worked, he focused, he created. And when asked about his failures, he did not lament. He simply said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That is the mindset of a man who is unavailable to distraction, a man who has closed his ears to doubt and opened his heart only to purpose. Let me now give you a practice, one that will train your mind to obey the voice of purpose, not the voices of the world. Each morning, before you touch the outer world, before you speak, before you read, before you are exposed to any noise, take 10 minutes in stillness. In that silence, speak your purpose aloud. Read it from the page. Or better yet, recite it from memory. Then ask yourself only one question. What must I do today to honor this purpose? That question will shape your actions. It will silence the unnecessary. It will reveal the foolish and elevate the essential. Charles Schwab, who carried U.S. Steel through its infancy to immense power, understood this principle deeply. He worked from priority, not from urgency. He trained his subordinates to bring him only what was necessary and to leave the rest. Schwab's days were not governed by pressure, but by direction. And this must become your aim. You are not a creature of reaction. You are a man of vision. But if you are always reacting, always available, always shifting, always answering, you will never build anything of weight. Power does not tolerate division. It demands allegiance. Let us be clear. To be ambitious but lazy is not always about physical effort. It is often about mental drift, the laziness of untrained focus. You may feel busy, but that is not the same as being effective. The effective man is deliberate. He says no more than yes. He speaks less and builds more. He listens inward and shuts the window on outer noise. He eliminates the non-essential and repeats the essential until mastery is automatic. Let this be your rule. Nothing enters the temple of your mind that does not serve your higher purpose. Write it on paper. Speak it aloud. Post it where you will see it. And if you must choose between a dozen average tasks and one essential movement, you choose the essential. For the world is full of busy men and poor ones, but the man of wealth, in mind, in spirit, in fortune, is the man of focus. Say it aloud. I do not divide my focus. I do not entertain distractions. My purpose is the loudest voice I hear. Now I will leave you with this image. A man walking a tightrope cannot afford to glance at the crowd. He must keep his eyes fixed, forward, unmoving, not because he is afraid of falling, but because he has decided to cross. You are that man, and your future is the rope. Keep your eyes forward and walk. Let us now proceed to the next movement of this reformation. There is no greater secret in the making of men than this. You are what you repeat, not once, not in bursts of emotion, but daily, silently, relentlessly. If a man speaks weakness often enough, it becomes his name. If he repeats doubt with conviction, it becomes his law. And if he tells himself he is tired, incapable, too late, too broken, then even the strongest ambition will die quietly under the weight of his own tongue. But here is the power you must now seize. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It obeys, and what you feed it, it becomes. Feed it fear, and it builds a prison. Feed it power, and it builds a kingdom. That is why I say this. You must speak only what you desire to become, not what you fear, not what you feel, what you intend to be. When I sat with Andrew Carnegie, the first lesson he gave me was not about wealth, nor steel, nor strategy. It was about autosuggestion. He said, Mr. Hill, no man becomes powerful by accident. He becomes powerful by repetition, by commanding his mind until the mind obeys. He gave me an assignment to write down my chief definite aim, to read it aloud twice each day, and to feel its reality as if it were already achieved. It was uncomfortable at first. I felt foolish, but I obeyed. And slowly the words began to shape my inner world. My fear began to shrink. My actions began to sharpen. My decisions became quicker, and my vision clearer than ever before. It was not magic, it was law. The law of repetition, the law of identity, the law that governs all achievement. Henry Ford, too, understood this. He spoke certainty until the world believed him. His factories did not begin as machines. They began as ideas. And those ideas, powered by belief, were repeated until the impossible became routine. Remember what he said. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Why? Because the mind accepts what it hears the most. Now ask yourself, what do you tell yourself when the world is quiet? What do you rehearse? Do you say, I am tired? Then you are training fatigue. Do you say, I'll never make it? Then you are installing failure. Do you say, I'm not good enough? Then you are engraving defeat into your nature. Stop it. From this moment forward, you speak only what you intend to become. Say it aloud. I am focused. I am unshakable. I am powerful. I act before fear has a voice. I am disciplined. I move with certainty. I rise without delay. Let those phrases become your new language. Do not say them once and expect change. Repeat them every morning, every evening, with fire, with belief, until they feel less like words and more like identity. That is how Thomas Edison worked. He did not simply tinker with inventions. He lived in belief. When the world called him mad, he called himself certain. He refused to speak failure. Even after thousands of so-called mistakes, he said, I have not failed. I have simply discovered what does not work. That is not optimism. That is identity. You must build the same. Build it in the mirror, not with thoughts, but with declarations. Build it in your posture, by standing as the man you intend to be. Build it in your decisions, by moving without apology. Build it in your silence, by refusing to let old thoughts speak louder than your aim. The subconscious cannot distinguish between imagination and reality, but it can distinguish between weak repetition and dominant belief. So speak your new name with power, with clarity, with emotion. Do not worry if you do not feel it yet. Speak it anyway. Do not wait until the world believes it. Speak it anyway. Do not ask for permission. Speak it anyway. For your words are not commentary. They are commands. Charles Schwab rose not because of pedigree, but because he carried himself like a man of vision. He spoke belief. He instilled certainty in others. And that certainty turned the tides of industry. What can your certainty do? What future is waiting to be built? If only you would speak like a man who already owns it. Let me give you this command. From this day forward, you will not rehearse failure. You will not repeat fear. You will not practice doubt. You will install belief. You will rehearse victory. You will build identity through repetition. You will repeat this speech not once, not when you feel like it, but daily. Because your identity is not chosen once, it is built through repetition. Say it now. I do not speak weakness. I do not entertain doubt. I am becoming the man I speak of. Say it again and again, because the voice you repeat the most becomes the voice your mind obeys. And the man who rewires his identity rewrites his destiny. Repetition is the chisel of the soul. It carves belief. It shapes identity. It sharpens aim. And whether you realize it or not, you are practicing something every day. Either you are practicing strength or you are rehearsing weakness. There is no neutral. The man who is ambitious but lazy has not failed because he lacks desire. He has failed because he has rehearsed disconnection from his desire. He dreams greatly, but his daily repetitions are small, unaligned, random, emotional. And over time, those small misalignments have written themselves into the language of his subconscious mind. But the good news is this: repetition can be rewritten. Repetition can be redirected. Repetition can be reclaimed. You see, when I studied the greats, Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Abraham Lincoln, Charles Schwab, I found not just stories of triumph, but stories of discipline, stories of habits, patterns of thinking, rituals of behavior. None of these men were perfect, but they were predictable. Predictable in their routines, predictable in their self-talk, predictable in their commitment to the vision, regardless of how they felt. Let us begin with Henry Ford, a man who revolutionized industry not through chance, but through process. Every morning he began his day with the same objective: progress. He believed in efficiency, not only in machines, but in thought. He refined his thinking the way he refined his assembly line, removing clutter, tightening focus, installing simplicity. That, my friend, is repetition with purpose. Ford once said, "Thinking is the hardest work there is," which is probably the reason why so few engage in it. But he didn't mean random thinking. He meant deliberate thought, structured thought, the kind of thought that comes from rehearsing a definite aim every day. Now let us look to Thomas Edison, the master of failure. Why? Because he understood repetition better than any man I ever met. Over 10,000 failed attempts to invent the light bulb, yet never once did he call himself a failure. He saw each trial as rehearsal, each test as part of the rhythm, because his belief had already been installed. Edison once said, "I never had a failed experiment. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That is not just resilience, that is trained identity. A man who practices belief until failure becomes powerless. You must begin to practice in the same way. Begin each morning by speaking your belief aloud, not casually, not timidly, but as if your life depends on it, because it does. Practice your posture, shoulders back, eyes forward. Breathe like a man who owns his time. Walk like a man who does not apologize for his ambition. Practice your decision-making. Choose quickly. Speak clearly. Move without broadcasting. Let your discipline do the talking. Practice the hard things, the uncomfortable things, for repetition turns difficulty into default. And when difficulty becomes your default, you become unstoppable. Now consider Abraham Lincoln, a man not of privilege but of principle, his entire presidency, forged in the fire of war. Every day new chaos, every hour new pressure. And yet, Lincoln practiced silence. He practiced stillness. He practiced reflection and clarity and long-term vision, even when the world demanded haste and noise. He was not brilliant because of his mind alone. He was brilliant because of his rehearsed strength. A man of law, yes, but also a man of inner law. And that is what you must now build. Your outer world is merely a reflection of your practiced inner world. If you want to rewire your laziness, you do not wait for motivation. You build rhythm. You build ritual. Wake up at the same time every day. Speak your law. Practice focus. Eat like a builder. Move like a warrior. Write like a thinker. And repeat over and over and over again. Do not chase variety. Chase identity. Charles Schwab, when placed in charge of U.S. Steel by Carnegie, was not the most technical man, but he was the most structured. He kept a short list of high-priority tasks. He taught his men to repeat the basics, master the fundamentals, ignore the noise, and in doing so, he became irreplaceable. You must now do the same. Do not add more, do less, but better. Repeat with excellence. Do not rely on emotion, train rhythm. Do not wait for change to feel right. Repeat until it becomes natural. You are not weak. You have simply practiced weakness. But now you will practice power. Say this aloud. I repeat strength until strength becomes second nature. I train my mind through rhythm, not mood. My identity is shaped by what I rehearse. And let these statements become your new daily laws. Because repetition is not glamorous, but it is divine. It is the invisible force behind every empire. It is the tool used by every man who ever rose from obscurity to immortality. Repeat this speech daily. Repeat your laws nightly. Repeat your belief endlessly. And soon, you will look in the mirror and no longer recognize the old man. You will see the man who is hidden beneath the dust of inconsistency. And you will realize he was always there, waiting for repetition to reveal him. Let us now bring this journey to its rightful conclusion, not with silence, not with uncertainty, but with certainty so deep it cannot be undone. My friend, if you have listened to every part of this speech, you are no longer who you were when it began. You have crossed a threshold. A line has been drawn between the man who wanted to change and the man who does not wait another moment to live it. Because let us make one thing clear. Laziness is not your nature. It is not your curse. It is not your identity. It is the consequence of drift. And drift, once identified, can be burned away. You do not need a new dream. You need new patterns. You do not need more motivation. You need repetition with fire. You do not need another day to think. You need to act. Now you've been taught by the examples of Carnegie, who installed belief like a mechanic installs steel. Ford, who practiced certainty until doubt could not survive. Edison, who failed 10,000 times and still never once called himself defeated. Lincoln, who carried a divided nation by practicing stillness and principle. Schwab, who commanded giants through clarity and rhythm. These men were not born with your technology. They did not have the comfort of your age. But they had one thing in common. They decided. And once they decided, they repeated that decision with such discipline, the universe had no choice but to respond. And so now I say to you, repeat this speech. Play it not once, but until its words become your nature. Repeat it in the morning, before the world tries to shape your thoughts. Repeat it at night, when the day has tried to pull you away from your fire. And most importantly, repeat your own laws daily. Each morning, speak one of the 10 laws aloud. Let it enter your bloodstream, and let it become your compass, and let it become your identity. And do not stop. Not when it gets hard, not when you feel tired, not when the fire grows quiet, because repetition is how giants are formed, how dynasties are built, how laziness is unlearned, and power is installed. You are not the man who drifts. You are not the man who delays. You are the man who decides. Say it now with full conviction. I repeat power. I rehearse purpose. I act without asking permission. I was not made to wait. I was made to build. This is the man I am, and I do not look back. And now, you know the mind must be shaped. You know power must be practiced. And you know the man you are becoming depends on what you repeat. So walk in that repetition, walk in that fire, and let the world watch as you become unrecognizable.